My first question is, were you surprised that the margin, the independent poll showed a pretty wide lead for McAuliffe? It turned out to be very, very close. Did the margin surprise you, or were you expecting a tight race?
It did surprise me because the conventional wisdom had been for months that it was not going to be a close election and that McAuliffe was going to win. And as data now emerges and people are beginning to figure out what happened, it really appears that the margin for McAuliffe widened during the time of the government shutdown because the Republicans were seen as the cause of that. And then what happened, which was unseen, was that there was a real reaction against Obamacare in Virginia. I think people were not accepting the idea that a socialized medicine program was a good program. I think that people were frustrated because they weren't seeing the implementation of it working very well. As a result, the president's popularity began to fall, and as a result of all of that, those polls narrowed, those margins narrowed, and you didn't know it until the actual election occurred.
I assume the shutdown would hurt, but like you, I think the realization of Obamacare hurt McAuliffe. But some would argue that maybe Ken should have made that more of an issue. That he led the fight against Obamacare. Maybe if he had talked more about that early on, that would have helped him. Or do you think that just wasn't really relevant?
Well, again, it didn't become apparent until the end of the campaign, and I did see a statement that Ken Cuccinelli made where he was saying that his election was, or this election was a referendum on Obamacare. And at the time, I didn't completely understand why that was an issue that was plucked out of everything else. But now I begin to understand that he probably had some polling that showed that public opinion was shifting against McAuliffe over that issue. His real problem, though, was that his record is very clear. He developed a record over a number of years. And that record has weaknesses, and not weaknesses. It has certain characterizations. And as a result, the Democrats were able to go to the actual record and then define Ken Cuccinelli in a particular way that was not very favorable. But he needed to really be talking about some other pertinent issues, and he never got to do it because at that point the money began to shift against him, and he was being so dramatically outspent in the news media.
It was something like 10-1 I heard in the last month. Now, if Obenshain hangs on to win, at least that'll be our consolation prize, I suppose. But will he be, in effect, the de facto head of the state GOP? He'll be the statewide official elected, or is it just we'll be in search for a new leader?
David, I think that the Republican Party at this point has to do a lot of thinking about what it has to do to succeed. Now, this is true in Virginia, and it's true nationally. And I certainly have some opinions about what we do need to do. But I'm not sure that any one person at this point is going to be able to claim the mantle of leadership. I'm not sure that we have to have one person that is in that kind of position. But certainly, I hope that Mark Obenshain holds on. I've known his family for many years. I think he'll be a good attorney general if he's elected, and I believe that he is going to be elected. It looks like that he's got the votes now to win the election, and I congratulate him.
Yeah, I like Mark a lot. I admired his father. So yeah, I hope he hangs on. The other question I'd have is, speaking of going forward, there is the debate on conventions versus primaries. I don't mind conventions. I know we nominated you. You won a convention for governor, but do you think, at least for a while, it looks like we're going to be looking at primaries now, because people seem to think that the convention, well, hurt us by going with the convention, or at least we'll nominate a stronger candidate in a primary. Do you have an opinion on primaries versus conventions?
I don't think that you can make a blanket statement about either one. I think you have to assess what works best for you in any particular election or any short-term policy sort of objective. Yes, I was nominated in a convention, but on the other hand, I was also attacked from the right at that time by Bob Marshall, which weakened the candidacy a lot, even though I survived barely in the convention. People want primaries, but they're usually people who think they have strong financial backers that can then contribute to television advertising, which will influence a primary. I remind people that Dick Obenshane, Mark's father, was nominated for the United States Senate in a convention. Uh, George Allen was nominated for governor, and I was nominated for attorney general in a convention in the same year, as a matter of fact. So it varies. And I think that the real issue, though, is what can we do to begin to build more of a consensus within our party? Because we haven't had that consensus for a while, and there are too many factions, I think, struggling with each other. Terry McCall certainly took advantage of certain Republicans who broke ranks and then went on TV on behalf of Terry McAuliffe. And, we do need strong statements that's just not acceptable behavior. And there are a lot of issues that won't be resolved by either choosing either a convention or a primary in a simplistic way.
Well, going forward, what do you think? How can the GOP attract more votes in Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads? I'm here in Fairfax, and it's a tough place for us. What can the Republicans do to? I mean, I remember a time we used to win in Fairfax County. We had a number of candidates win in Fairfax County. What can we do to appeal to a broader spectrum up here and win?
Well, I won in Fairfax County. When I ran for governor, I carried Fairfax County. And I believe today that there are things that we absolutely need to do. Number one, I think that we're a party that gives the impression that there are certain groups of people we just don't want their support. And we just can't do that. We have to be competing for and receptive of all groups in all areas in our appeal. And we should write nobody off. I think we should make an appeal to the African American community, but there is a distinction. You don't just simply go and ask for the vote. I think you have to go listen to what people's concerns are, and that's true for women. That's true for young people. Who I think I know young people's concerns and the difficulty that they're having in this dreadful economy. So these are I think all these groups are people we have to go and fight for. I will tell you that when I ran for governor, I was advised to not run in Northern Virginia. I was told it was going to be Democratic territory and my time would be better spent downstate. And I rejected that and ran very hard in Northern Virginia. And at the end of the day, I won Northern Virginia. Secondly, I think we have to actually address people's concerns, and I think we're not necessarily doing that. Instead of our groups within the party thinking, what is it that's my most important issue, and I'm going to go tell the people of Virginia what my most important issue is, I think we've got to get out there and listen a little bit more and find out what the public's concerns are and begin to offer good conservative solutions to people's everyday problems. And I did that when I ran for governor by offering the car tax cut. That was really on people's minds. People were very concerned about the tremendous tax burden, and we offered to relieve that, and people rallied to it. So we have to have legitimate issues that solve people's problems. And third, and a bit of a corollary, is I think that we have to begin to spend more time thinking about how we're going to get urban vote. The state is becoming more urban. The nation is becoming more urban. Republicans have to begin to commit themselves to urban issues and finding the proper solutions to urban issues. Now, this is not that tough. You might think it is because of the way we address these issues, but it isn't that tough. What do people in the urban communities want? Well, they want a good, safe community, so law enforcement is an issue. They want to make sure that their areas are clean. They want to make sure that there's a decent transportation. They want to be sure that their kids can get a decent education in the public schools, K through 12 education. And I remind you, when I ran, I offered to add 4,000 new teachers into the public schools to reduce class sizes, and that was very appealing. I think people in the suburban areas expect their children to go to college, and they don't want to have college be unaffordable. They want to be able to get into college, and they want it to be affordable. And that's why, by the way, when I was governor, I cut tuition 20%. So by the way, I gave the colleges the money. The real issue was how were you going to cut tuition for parents and to create a much more amenable atmosphere for going to college. If we would begin to address these kinds of issues instead of our own individual priorities, then I think we become more representative of the public and we can win elections in Virginia and nationally. And that's what we have to do.
Well, it's that sound advice. I wouldn't put you on the spot, but I think we need you to get back in the arena and run again. You don't have to answer that, but I hear you on everything you said. Let's hope we can come back together and start winning again. You know, it's a disappointing loss, but Virginia is not a blue state. I think it is salvageable.
We can win again in Virginia. I know how to do that. I've talked to you about that in this interview. We can win nationally. If you follow this prescription, we'll do just fine in urban areas across the East and places like Cleveland and Ohio, and we're going to do fine. But we have to begin to rethink the way we do things. But I appreciate your leadership and spurring discussion and information through your efforts in public affairs.
Well, thanks a lot, Governor. It was great talking to you, and we'll talk soon. We'll keep in touch. It's a tough day, but I think your words help to soothe the pain and to realize we live to fight another day.
The future is very bright.